Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. It was shaping up to be a season of redemption and resurgence for Miami Dolphins cornerback Juju Brents, a player who had shown glimpses of the talent that made him a coveted second-round draft pick after a rough start to his NFL career with the Indianapolis Colts, where injuries and limited playing time kept him off the field for significant stretches. Brents had found a new home in Miami and began to look like he was finally hitting his stride. The excitement around his potential contribution to the Dolphins' defense was palpable among fans and analysts alike, as he brought a combination of athleticism, instinct, and competitive fire to the secondary. Unfortunately, that optimism has been abruptly halted. Brent suffered a serious injury to his right foot during the fourth quarter of Sunday's clash with the Washington Commanders, an incident that has now been confirmed to be season-ending, requiring surgical intervention for a player working tirelessly to prove himself. This injury is not just a physical setback, it's a deeply personal and professional disappointment. A cruel twist in what had been a promising narrative for both him and the Dolphins' defensive unit. The timing of the injury could not have been worse. Brent had been gradually carving out a starting role in the Dolphins' secondary, a position group that has been plagued by injuries and inconsistent performances all season long. Miami's cornerback corps had already been struggling with depth issues, a storyline that began in training camp and has persisted as the season has unfolded. Losing Brent now only exacerbates those concerns, leaving head coach Mike McDaniel and defensive coordinator Vic Fangio with limited options and forcing younger, less experienced players to shoulder responsibilities they may not have been fully prepared to handle. In Sunday's game, rookie cornerback Jason Marshall Jr. was suddenly thrust into an expanded role against a formidable Commanders offense, a baptism by fire that showcased both the potential and the limitations of the Dolphins' current secondary. Brent's absence will now likely shift more of the defensive burden onto Marshall and other backup players, testing the depth, resilience, and cohesion of a unit that has already faced more adversity than most. For Juju Brents personally, the injury represents the culmination of a season that was meant to be transformative after being waived by the Colts, where he had played in just 11 games over the seasons due to injuries and roster decisions. Brent's arrival in Miami offered a fresh start and an opportunity to redefine his career. When healthy, he had demonstrated why he was selected in the second round, flashing the coverage skills, anticipation, and ball-hawking ability that scouts once believed could make him a cornerstone of an NFL secondary. Each practice and each game in Miami had allowed him to regain confidence, refine his techniques, and showcase his value not just to coaches, but to the league as a whole. Now, with surgery on the horizon and the remainder of the season lost, Brent faces the dual challenge of physical rehabilitation and mental resilience. Recovering from foot surgery is never easy, particularly for a player whose position demands quick changes of direction, acceleration, and precise footwork. The path to being fully ready for the 2026 season will require disciplined training, patience, and an unwavering focus on returning stronger and healthier. The emotional toll of a season-ending injury is profound, and for Brent, the timing could not have been more frustrating. Many players speak about the mental challenges of rehabbing from significant injuries, and in Brent's case, the situation is compounded by the fact that he had just begun to reestablish his career. Players in his position often describe a mixture of disappointment, frustration, and even anger when sidelined at critical moments, emotions that are magnified when the injury interrupts a season that promise career redemption. Teammates, coaches, and fans alike understand the narrative at play here: a young player with undeniable talent, striving to prove that his potential can translate into consistent performance at the highest level, now facing an enforced absence from the game he loves. While the physical surgery is one challenge, the mental journey of staying motivated, engaged, and connected to the team while recovering is another battle entirely. In interviews following the announcement of the injury, Brent conveyed determination, vowing to use the time away from the field to prepare for a triumphant return, underscoring the mindset required to navigate such an unfortunate setback. From the Dolphins' perspective, the implications are immediate and significant. Miami's secondary has been under scrutiny since the preseason, with injuries forcing coaches to shuffle personnel and adjust schemes on the fly. Losing Brent amplifies these challenges, placing additional pressure on a group already stretched thin. The defensive strategy will likely need to adapt, with the coaching staff relying on versatile players who can cover multiple roles and emphasizing schemes that compensate for the absence of an experienced cornerback. In addition, questions about roster management and potential acquisitions are sure to surface. The front office now faces decisions about whether to explore free agent options, promote practice squad players, or adjust defensive game plans to mitigate the impact of Brent's absence. Every snap of the ball in the coming weeks will be scrutinized as the Dolphins attempt to maintain competitiveness in a league where depth at key positions is often the difference between victory and defeat. The injury also highlights the fragility of an NFL season and the thin margin for error in roster construction. Teams invest significant resources in scouting, drafting, and developing players, but even the most well-laid plans can be disrupted by the unpredictability of injuries. Brent's situation serves as a reminder that talent alone is never enough. Durability, timing, and a bit of luck are equally critical in a sport defined by physicality and high stakes. For Miami, it's a moment that underscores the importance of building a roster that can withstand adversity, particularly at cornerback, where injuries have a domino effect on the overall defensive performance. Each game without Brents will test the remaining starters' ability to adapt, communicate, and execute, forcing the Dolphins' defense to operate under pressure and under less than ideal circumstances. The resilience of the team will be tested in ways that fans and analysts can watch unfold on the field, turning every play into a reflection of preparation, adaptability, and mental toughness. Looking ahead, there is still reason for optimism. Brent's talent is undeniable, and with the proper rehabilitation, he has the potential to return fully capable for the 2026 season. Miami's secondary, while challenged, is not without skill and leadership, and the situation offers an opportunity for younger players to grow, gain experience, and step into roles they might not have otherwise been entrusted with. The adversity faced by the Dolphins could ultimately strengthen the team's cohesion and depth. If handled strategically, coaches and management alike will need to balance immediate game day needs with long-term development, ensuring that each player is prepared to contribute while maintaining a vision for sustained success. Brent's journey back from injury will be closely followed by teammates, fans, and analysts. A narrative intertwined with the team's broader story of resilience, adaptation, and the relentless pursuit of excellence in the face of challenges. In the grand scope of the NFL, injuries like this are a harsh but familiar reality, and for Juju Brents, it represents both an interruption and a chance to refocus. The road ahead will be demanding, filled with therapy sessions, conditioning, and a mental commitment to remain engaged with the game despite being unable to suit up. For Miami, the immediate impact will be felt on the field, but the long-term perspective requires patience and strategic planning. The Dolphins' remaining defensive backs must rise to the occasion, demonstrating not only skill but adaptability, leadership, and perseverance. For fans, the storyline is compelling. A talented cornerback season cut short, the ripple effect on a team navigating adversity, and the potential for redemption next year. Brent's injury is a stark reminder of the unforgiving nature of professional football, where careers are shaped not just by talent and effort, but by resilience in the face of setbacks. As the Dolphins push forward, every snap without Brent will carry weight, but his eventual return promises a chapter of triumph and recovery that could redefine his career and bolster Miami's aspiration for the future. Still with us? Then show some love, hit that like button, and let us know in the comments what's your take on the Fins this week. Man, you won't believe what's stirring in the NFL right now. Terry McLaurin, the star wide receiver for the Washington Commanders, has been making waves in a way that's sending shockwaves across social media, sports networks, and every corner of the fan base. You know McLaurin, right? The guy who's basically the heartbeat of the Commanders' offense. The one who can turn a broken play into a highlight reel touchdown faster than you can blink. Well, he's been dropping some serious hints about the game against the Miami Dolphins. And let me tell you, it's the kind of stuff that makes fans clutch their jerseys and analysts scramble for sound bites. McLaurin apparently went on record, not in the traditional post-game media blandness, but in a very candid, almost fiery way, implying that the Commanders got completely robbed in that matchup. Now, we all know football can be controversial, replays can be missed, and calls can be disputed. But hearing it straight from McLaurin's mouth, that's next level. The buzz started the moment the interview clip hit Twitter, and you could almost see the internet explode in real time. Fans were dissecting every word, reading into every pause, every inflection, Every subtle glance that McLaurin threw at the camera, he didn't outright say we were cheated. But the insinuation was strong. Like he was pointing to some unseen injustice that everyone else somehow missed. And here's the kicker, this wasn't just your typical post-loss disappointment. This wasn't a "we'll get M next week" comment that we've all heard from players trying to keep it professional. No, this was McLaurin, in his element, letting the frustration spill over, and it felt authentic, raw, unfiltered. There's always a fine line between venting and stirring controversy. And McLaurin teetered right on that edge, and fans, though, they ate it up. People have started replaying the game from every possible angle, looking for what McLaurin might have been talking about. Some are pointing to the referee's calls in the second quarter, the ones that looked like they went against the Commanders but weren't really called on the field. There were moments when it seemed like Miami got the benefit of the doubt on tight passes, borderline holding penalties that went unflagged. And let's not forget that controversial touchdown in the fourth quarter that had everyone in the stands shaking their heads. You know, the type instant replay shows it as questionable. Fans are screaming at their TVs, and players are left thinking, did that really just happen? Now imagine McLaurin, someone who's known for his professionalism and laser focus, seeing all of that unfold and then deciding to speak out. That adds a whole new layer to the narrative. Suddenly, it's not just about the game anymore. It's about credibility, fairness, and the integrity of the league. The way McLaurin delivered his comments made it feel like more than just a gripe. It was almost a rallying cry for the team and for the fans. You could hear the underlying message: we didn't lose because we weren't good enough. We lost because the game slipped away in ways that were completely out of our hands. And that's a dangerous type of statement in sports media because it immediately sparks debates, hot takes, and of course, memes. Analysts on every channel started dissecting the interview, speculating on whether McLaurin would face any repercussions from the league, or if he was just letting off steam in a very calculated manner. The thing is, with someone like McLaurin, calculated or not, it feels genuine. You don't get that kind of passionate delivery without a reason, and fans can smell authenticity a mile away. The ripple effect has been insane. Social media threads have been blowing up nonstop, with some fans agreeing with McLaurin wholeheartedly, calling out the referees, questioning the fairness of the officiating, and even suggesting conspiracy-level theories about how certain calls seem to favor big market teams. Others are cautioning against blaming the referees, arguing that football is unpredictable and that sometimes the ball just bounces the wrong way. But here's the reality: when your team's star player is saying, even indirectly, that the game was stolen from you, it gives a lot of people permission to voice what they've been thinking all along. And let me tell you, the fanbase hasn't held back. Reddit threads, Twitter spaces, and even TikTok videos have been filled with replay analysis, slow-motion clips of the most questionable plays, and passionate breakdowns of why the Commanders were allegedly denied justice on the field. And the story doesn't stop there. Rumors are starting to swirl about how this might affect the team internally. Some insiders suggest that McLaurin's comments could either create tension with league officials or, on the flip side, embolden the team to push back harder in future games. Locker room dynamics are often invisible to the public, but when a leading figure like McLaurin speaks out so publicly, it changes the atmosphere. Players start rallying around their teammate. Coaches might need to manage the media frenzy, and suddenly, a single statement becomes a strategic consideration for the rest of the season. If the Commanders use this as motivation, we could see them coming back stronger, hungrier, almost like a team with something to prove, not just to their fans but to the entire league. The idea of turning controversy into fuel is classic sports psychology, and McLaurin might have just lit the spark. Now, let's talk about the media circus that inevitably follows. Sports networks have been replaying the interview clip on a loop, with analysts debating every nuance, every micro-expression. Some are questioning whether McLaurin should have expressed himself so openly, while others argue that athletes finally speaking their minds is exactly what fans want. It taps into this larger narrative about player empowerment, accountability, and the relationship between professional athletes and the institutions that govern their sport. And while some commentators are trying to downplay it as typical post-loss frustration, anyone who's followed McLaurin's career knows that he doesn't say things lightly. He's thoughtful, strategic, and usually measured. So when he makes a statement like this, it carries weight. People aren't just talking about a single controversial game anymore. They're talking about the way players feel about officiating, League transparency and respect for the game itself, of course. Fans of the Dolphins aren't exactly staying quiet either. Every controversial call, every disputed play, every hint that the Commanders might have been robbed is being dissected, countered, and mocked. Sports rivalries thrive on moments like this, and the tension between the two fan bases has escalated dramatically. Memes have been created, hot takes have been unleashed, and social media fights have erupted, all sparked by McLaurin's candid comments. And here's where it gets really interesting. The league itself is in the spotlight. Questions are being raised not just about the game, but about the officiating standards, review procedures, and consistency in how rules are applied across the board. Suddenly, a single post-game interview has ballooned into a full-blown narrative about fairness, accountability, and the potential for systemic bias. And that, my friends, is why McLaurin's words are resonating so deeply. They've tapped into something bigger than just one game. The more you watch the footage, the more you start to feel what McLaurin might have been feeling. You see those borderline calls, the missed flags, the moments that could have changed the trajectory of the game if they went the other way. You can almost hear the frustration boiling over, the kind of frustration that doesn't fade with a replay. It lingers in the locker room, in interviews, and now, through McLaurin, it's made its way directly into the public sphere. It's this kind of narrative that keeps people talking, keeps fans engaged, and honestly, keeps sports interesting, because at the end of the day, we all love the drama, the controversies, the moments where the human element, both players and officials, becomes impossible to ignore. And McLaurin has handed us a perfect example of that, wrapped in raw emotion and just enough mystery to keep everyone guessing. Even now, days after the game, the discussion hasn't died down. Fans are still debating whether McLaurin's statement was fair, warranted, or just another post-game rant. Analysts are revisiting the game frame by frame, looking for validation or refutation of his claim. Meanwhile, McLaurin himself has stayed mostly quiet after the initial comments, letting the buzz do the talking. That silence, it only adds fuel to the fire. People speculate about whether he has more to say, whether the team feels slighted, whether the league will respond, and what this could mean for the rest of the season. In the world of sports, a single interview can shift the narrative entirely, and McLaurin has managed to do that with a few carefully chosen words. It's part accountability, part emotion, part strategy, and the result is pure, unfiltered intrigue that has everyone from casual fans to die-hard analysts on edge. In the end, what's fascinating about all this is how it reflects the changing landscape of professional sports. Players like McLaurin are no longer just athletes. They're voices, influencers, and catalysts for conversation. By speaking up, even subtly, they reshape the narrative, challenge the establishment, and remind us all that the game isn't just played on the field, it's played in the media, in the commentary, and in the hearts of fans everywhere. And as the weeks go on, as the Commanders continue their season, this incident is going to linger, influencing perceptions, motivating players, and keeping fans on edge. Terry McLaurin's comments might have started as a simple expression of frustration, but they've evolved into a full-blown saga, the kind that fuels debate, headlines, and, let's be honest, some of the most passionate discussions in sports today. Whether you agree with him or not, there's no denying it. The ripple effects of those words are only beginning. And we're all here, eagerly watching, waiting to see what happens next. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!